CuriosityStream has thousands of documentary films and shows available on demand on any device. We're the Netflix for nerds, the Hulu for history buffs, the Disney Plus for the scientist in us. There sure are a lot of streaming services, aren't there? CuriosityStream is the one you definitely need if you're the type to nature dock and chill, if you're an armchair astronaut, if you prefer physics to psychics, or perhaps you know a precocious paleontologist. Go to curiositystream.com to learn more and sign up today.
Odyssey now has hundreds of new exclusive music stations for you to discover your new summer soundtrack.
Get moving with worthy workouts for a cardio sesh fueled by today's top artists.
Hanging with your crew? Throw it back with Picnic Party for old school jams for your cookout.
Or sail away with Odyssey's new yacht rock station, Jugger Yacht.
There are hundreds of new exclusive stations to check out today.
For summer barbecues,
road trips,
or relaxing poolside.
For every mood, every interest, every passion. By Odyssey.
Knowledgeable.
Listen, here's what's wrong with your hypothesis, your theorem, your supposition, your postulate.
Honest.
If that front ain't in gangsta, your back end won't be able to show its full potential.
Understanding.
You're going to suck. You're going to suck for the next couple of years.
Passionate.
I'm all over social media. I live it.
This is the Kevin Sheehan Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.
Hashtag facts.
It's the Kevin Sheehan Show. Now, here's Kevin.
Second down to 9. Winston under pressure, throwing for Callaway. It is caught. Touchdown. Marquez Callaway. A second spectacular touchdown catch tonight.
This is a great throw and catch against the Jaguars.
I know, Sheehan. I know. It's just the preseason. Keep telling yourself that. It's just the preseason. And it is just the preseason. But I did tune in, Brendan, last night to the beginning of the Saints-Jags game, which was the final game of Week 2 of the preseason, nationally televised on ESPN as the Monday night game. I don't think next week has a Monday night. I think the games all end on Sunday. So what you've typically gotten in preseasons past is you'll get a Sunday night game on NBC late in the preseason, and you'll get a Monday night game late in the preseason on whichever network is going to have Monday Night Football. It's ESPN, to get people maybe into the rhythm of, hey, don't forget Monday nights, 8 o'clock or 8:15 or whatever time it starts. We've got Monday Night Football. And last night I did tune in. And I wanted to tune in, and some of you know this, and Brendan even mentioned it to me before the show, because I'm a Jameis Winston fan. I don't know why I'm a Jameis Winston fan. I've always been a Jameis Winston fan. There's something about his charisma. I think it's his leadership ability. It's also his I don't give a blank attitude in the way he throws the ball around the field, which many people have said to me in the past, Sheehan, it seems like you like those guys. Like you liked Rex Grossman. Well, it's not that I liked Rex Grossman as like a starting quarterback for my favorite team, but I loved his attitude. And then people will say, we don't get it. It's a total disconnect with your love for one Kirk Cousins. Look, it's not that I loved Kirk Cousins. It's just that I thought the team was making a massive mistake in the way they were handling it, and they had professional quarterbacking for the first time in a long time. So I did enjoy that. But yes, I prefer guys like Winston and Grossman and, to a certain extent, a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick. I'm not talking about, describing them as your franchise's quarterback for a decade plus, but I just like their ability to just move on. Bad throw, pick, I'm going to throw it right back in the same spot, and this time it's going to work out. And I like people that have that, sort of short memory attitude in sports. And I've just always liked Jameis Winston. I liked him at Florida State. I liked him coming out. I liked him more than I liked Mariota in that draft, and I have always had this feeling that Jameis Winston, if he gets in the right situation, and by the way, I did think that Bruce Arians would be the right situation for him in Tampa. I did. And he threw 33 touchdown passes in 2019. He threw for over 5,000 yards in 2019. He also threw 30 interceptions and fumbled 9 times. So I understand all of that as well, and took 47 sacks during the 2019 season. Sean Payton's one of the coaches in the league that I really think gets it. You know, across the board, and he's an offensive guy, and he gets quarterback play. I watched last night. I don't know how many of you watched. I recognize, and I'm not backing off, this is the preseason. I understand that as well. It did look like to me that Jacksonville and Urban Meyer really wanted to get into some sort of regular season rhythm. Now, they had some starters out that weren't able to play, but for the most part, they went with all of their starters for a while. And Jameis Winston just came out and completely dissected the Jacksonville defense. Now, I get what Jacksonville is. They didn't do this to Baltimore. They didn't do this to the Rams defense. They didn't do this to the Washington defense. They didn't do this to their own defense. But Jameis Winston, if he's not the starter for the Saints, Brendan, on opening day against the Packers, and Taysom Hill is, there needs to be an investigation of the well-being, the mental well-being of the head coach, Sean Payton. If you're a fan of football and just try to be a Saints fan for a moment, is there anybody in the New Orleans Saints community that would want to see Taysom Hill be the starter over Winston? Winston last night, 9 of 10, 123 yards, 2 touchdowns and 3 drives. By the way, his second drive did ultimately lead to a punt, but that's because there were back-to-back penalties that got him out of field goal range. They were on the move. You know, they had converted 1 first down, and then there were just penalties that derailed the drive. But the first drive, he threw a bomb to Marquez Callaway, who was interfered with, and he came down with the ball anyway for a touchdown. And then against the blitz on their third drive, he threw a perfect pass, reading the unblocked edge rusher and throwing another perfect throw to Callaway, who made a great catch, a one-handed catch for the touchdown, and they had a 14-0 lead. Is anybody, you follow this stuff more closely than I do, I think, Brendan? For everybody, I want you to understand, Brendan loves the sports that I love, which is why I love that he is producing this show, because we have similar tastes. There's not going to be a whole hell of a lot of hockey discussion in September and October on this show, nor would there have been even if Brendan were a big hockey fan. But we like a lot of the same things, and we follow a lot of the same things closely. So I will ask you, because I'm not following the Saints situation closely other than watching last night. Does anybody in New Orleans think that Taysom Hill should or can win the starting job?
I think there are a lot of people, Sean Payton included, that think he can win it. Now, should he win it? No. I feel like last night proved it was game over. But I've seen people as recently as a week and a half ago saying that Taysom has a real shot at winning the job.
He can't throw the football.
Well, yeah. This is why I have a hard time believing Sean Payton's an elite coach. You don't think Payton's an elite coach? I disagree with you on that. I think he's an elite offensive mind, but as a head coach, this Taysom Hill love is so blindingly enraging for me. I just can't get over it. And I don't think anybody should get over it, because he took his Hall of Fame quarterback off the field to give Taysom Hill reps. I know Drew Brees can't throw like 9 yards down the field, but he still took him off the field in the red zone to put Taysom Hill in.
He did.
And now he's having an open competition with a guy that cannot throw the football, with Jameis Winston, who had last night 2 throws better than Taysom Hill has ever had in his career. Going back to college, 2 throws better than he's ever had. How is this happening? What are we doing?
I mean, well, what's happening is he does like Taysom Hill and some of the packages that he can put Taysom Hill in. Look, I think it's different in recent years because Drew Brees was declining. And Drew Brees is, the playoff game that they put Taysom Hill in a couple of years ago against Minnesota, the one they lost in overtime, he made a couple of plays in that game, and Drew Brees didn't. But he can't throw the ball consistently. He is a straight zone read running or power running quarterback. There's a lot that's similar to the way that Carolina ran Cam Newton, but he doesn't have the ability to stand back and throw from the pocket. I think, the Saints are a very interesting team because even last night there was, if you were watching, because the other reason I wanted to watch the game last night is I wanted to see Trevor Lawrence. I had not seen him throw one pass other than on highlights in the preseason. And my God, the Saints defensively are going to be a good football team again. They've got an excellent offensive line. I think they have an excellent defense. No Michael Thomas for the first probably 3 or 4 games of the season is going to hurt him a little bit, but it does sound like he doesn't want to get dealt anymore, which is good news for them. I think New Orleans has a good team, and Lawrence looked terrible, but he was under duress the entire time. They had no running game. They tried to establish James Robinson, who, by the way, just as an aside, I think on that top 100 list came in at 100. After being an undrafted free agent a year ago and having a big year with Jay Gruden as the offensive coordinator in Jacksonville. As an aside, Lawrence really struggled. Now, I don't know how much of it was his fault because it really looked like he was under pressure from the get-go. New Orleans has, I think, a good defense and a good team. And I think it's a total waste of a season and of a talented football team, maybe not with a lot of depth, but a talented football team. He didn't have his 2 best offensive weapons last night, Winston. Kamara didn't play, Thomas didn't play. But you've got to go with Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston gives that team a chance to win 11-plus games. What's their over-under in Vegas? I forget what it is. It's got to be right around 11, right?
Yeah, I remember it being pretty high. I thought it was like 10.5 or 11.
Yeah. They're a good football team, and I think people are really sleeping on them because I think, Drew Brees retires, and you just think automatically they'll take a step back. Drew Brees has had some moments, but I also thought you could see declining physical ability in the last couple of years. Certainly last year at times. Total wins regular season for the Saints. I'm actually interested in this because I think you're right. I think it's like 10.5, 11. Whoa. We were both wrong on this. It's 9.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
And it's pricey to play the under. Minus 130.
I'm guessing that's come down since the Thomas injury. Probably not a lot, but probably from like 9.5 or 10 to 9.
Thomas injury wouldn't change a total that much.
Well, the QB uncertainty is also getting baked into that.
I think that's much more significant. But if you watched last night and you saw Jameis Winston, again, it's the preseason, I understand this, but we do know he's going to throw a bunch of touchdown passes. They're going to score points. They're going to score a lot of points, and it's a much better team than he's ever had around him. The first year with Arians and Bowles was an injury-plagued year in a lot of spots for them. They were, that year, they were a pretty good team. They were very close to being much better than it turned out in 2019. They had a ton of close losses, if my memory serves me correctly, and I'm going to pull up what it was. I remember they had a shootout with the Rams where it was like 52-44 or something like that in that season. Yeah, here's their season. They went 7-9 in 2019. That was Arians and Bowles year 1, correct? 2019 was. I think it was. Yeah, because 2018 was a disaster year for them. And so they hired Arians. He brought Bowles in because, remember, Bowles came up here and briefly interviewed and said, nah, I'm not coming here because Gruden's a lame duck. 2019... they lost games 32-31 to the Giants, 31-24 to the Saints, 27-23 at Tennessee, 40-34 to Seattle. By the way, the Rams game was 55-40. They beat the Rams on the road that year. That Seattle game, if I recall, they had a huge lead in that game, and Winston was incredible early on. And then Seattle came roaring back with Wilson and won in overtime 40-34. And then at the end of the year, they lost. I remember this because Houston kind of needed the game. They lost on a field goal where Winston had some turnovers but was also pretty good. They lost by a field goal to Houston, and they lost in overtime to Atlanta. They literally had that year 2 overtime losses, and then a total of 3, 4, 5, 6 losses by 7 points or less. It was a competitive team, and they blew some people out, too, that year. I don't know. I think there's a second career for Jameis Winston. I think there's a resurrection of his career in New Orleans. I'm rooting for it because when he was replaced by Brady in Tampa, I've told this story before, and it was very surprising to me because I think there was a narrative about Jameis Winston that was negative. You know, the seafood, stealing the seafood from the Publix in Florida, which, as it turns out, essentially was a lot of the players were getting free seafood from this seafood counter in Publix. But if he admitted that he was getting it for free instead of taking the hit for stealing it from the Publix, then Florida State would have been open to an investigation and potential probation because players were getting free product from a supermarket. So he pretty much fell on the sword for that one. I know there were other issues at Florida State. I do understand that. But the thing about the day that New England signed Brady, there's a writer out of Tampa Bay whose name escapes me right now. He's a longtime columnist in Tampa. And he was a guest on Mad Dog's show on XM Sirius, on Chris Russo's show. And I was listening to the interview. And it was the day that Brady signed with Tampa. And then we knew that Winston was not going to be in Tampa anymore. And while the columnist, whose name escapes me, was incredibly excited that Tom Brady was coming to Tampa, he spoke very eloquently and, to me, surprisingly, about how beloved Winston was in Tampa. He said that every single person in that organization loved Jameis Winston. He was a natural-born leader. The coaches loved him. The players loved him. The community loved Jameis Winston. And he said the only downside, he said, look, you pick Tom Brady over Jameis Winston every single day of the week and twice on Sunday. Everybody understands that. But there's a real sorrow to see Jameis leave because he was such a great member of the community. Now, I don't know if that was a maturity thing over the years for Jameis Winston, because he obviously did have issues in college. But I remember sitting there listening to that because I was always a fan of Winston, the player, and thought that there was a real chance for Winston to become a really good NFL quarterback. And obviously at that point, I was dead wrong. And I remember hearing that thinking, wow, I didn't know that. And the comments from his teammates and coaches after the Brady signing about Jameis were across the board complimentary and loving, like very loving towards him. So I guess I think that there's more to Jameis Winston than most people think. He did get LASIK, right, at the end of last year, or did he get it before last year? I forget when he got the LASIK, but he apparently needed LASIK desperately. I don't know if it's the reason for all the interceptions. The LASIK doesn't correct, color blindness. And color blindness, for those that don't know, isn't like where you can't see any color at all. It's usually reds, greens, and browns that you have the most trouble with. I know that because 2 of my 3 boys have color blindness. But anyway, LASIK certainly would help him see more clearly maybe down the field, especially if he had a short, vision issue, which means, you can't see longer vision. It's one of those things that, it's like positive, did you test positive or negative? It gets a little bit confusing for some. But anyway, I'm rooting for him. And last night, albeit a preseason game against Jacksonville, if he doesn't start for the Saints this year, then I'll either believe that there's really something that we're completely missing behind the scenes, because Sean Payton's not going to start a lesser quarterback, or that would be the only reason. Right now, it has to be like a 99% chance that Winston gets named the starter after this final preseason game. They play the Cardinals on Friday night or Saturday night. I forget what day it is. Anyway, I think the Saints could be good with Winston. I'll probably be wrong. He'll probably throw 30 plus touchdowns, but he'll probably throw 25 interceptions and fumble 7 times, and they'll be 8-8. What's your guess on his year? That's not my guess, but it wouldn't surprise me if it happens. I'm hoping for a total resurrection of his career because, look, Jameis Winston is only 27 years old. This is technically the entrance for a quarterback into his prime years. Like the next the next 7 to 10 years nowadays could be a whole new career and the prime years of his career. I'm hoping for that to happen for him.
I think there's a decent chance he could turn things around. I mean, I know the receiver group isn't that great, and they lost Troutman last night, their tight end.
They did. I missed that.
Yeah, he got carted off the field. Didn't look good, but Kamara's there. Sean Payton can still scheme in offense. Like the pieces are in place for him to have a good year. I mean, I don't know how good they're going to be because they are so limited depth-wise. Like if there's an injury to Kamara or there's an injury on a
who
big
else do they have at tight
injury,
end? Because they lost. What's his?
It's Nick Vannett and a converted wide receiver, Jawan Johnson.
Oh, was Troutman hurt seriously?
You never know, but with the cart coming out, I kind of think it was kind of serious.
He was a fairly high pick. I remember the tight ends that year, with Kmet and some of the others, right? That was the Kmet year. And Cooley liked Troutman because I think he went to a smaller school, football school.
They don't even play football anymore.
Who's that? Where did he go?
University of Dayton.
Dayton, yeah. They have an outstanding offensive line. Outstanding. And they've got speed and playmaking ability on defense and a phenomenal secondary. And obviously a star in Cam Jordan and potentially even Davenport. It's a good front-line team. They are one of those teams that if they had a bunch of injuries would be in big, big trouble. But I hope that Jameis Winston, and I believe Jameis Winston, I'd be shocked if Jameis Winston isn't the starter. And I'm rooting for him to have a good year. Not at the expense of our team. Like, I don't want, Jameis to be playing in week 18 this year, would be the 17th game for everybody, and Washington needing New Orleans to lose to snag the last wild card spot. I wouldn't be rooting for him in that spot. But I am rooting for him to be successful in New Orleans. He's so talented. That's the one thing I don't think anybody can debate. He is exceptionally talented. Big, strong, can make every throw. And maybe, Arians I consider to be a pretty good coach as well. And I think, but that team that year didn't have a problem offensively moving the ball or scoring points. They did have a problem with their quarterback turning the ball over a ton, which he did. And somehow he's going to have to avoid that. All right, I've got a couple of what do you got. Ron Rivera spoke yesterday. There was one answer he gave that actually... as I was listening late yesterday afternoon to the presser, just made me laugh out loud because I've never heard him talk this way. So I will play that for you a little bit later on in this hour. But guess where the NFC East odds have moved with the news that Dak Prescott may not be completely healthy for the upcoming season. I'll give you that update when we come back. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, theteam980.com. We're also on the Odyssey app.
Odyssey now has hundreds of new exclusive music stations for you to discover your new summer soundtrack.
Get moving with worthy workouts for a cardio sesh fueled by today's top artists.
Hanging with your crew? Throw it back with Picnic Party for old school jams for your cookout.
Or sail away with Odyssey's new yacht rock station, Jugger Yacht.
There are hundreds of new exclusive stations to check out today.
For summer barbecues,
road trips,
or relaxing poolside.
For every mood, every interest, every passion. By Odyssey.
CuriosityStream has thousands of documentary films and shows available on demand on any device. We're the Netflix for nerds, the Hulu for history buffs, the Disney Plus for the scientist in us. There sure are a lot of streaming services, aren't there? CuriosityStream is the one you definitely need if you're the type to nature dock and chill, if you're an armchair astronaut, if you prefer physics to psychics, or perhaps you know a precocious paleontologist. Go to curiositystream.com to learn more and sign up today.
In America, the future belongs to everyone. So we built the SUVs of the future for everyone. Like Ford Escape, Edge, or Explorer. All named 2021 IIHS top safety picks with specific headlights. One of the many reasons why Ford has the freshest lineup of SUVs in America. Because the SUVs of the future aren't built for a few. They're built for America. Ford SUVs. Drive one today. When equipped with available LED headlamps based on AutoSource Incorporated data obtained on 10520.
It's Kevin Sheehan on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.
All right.
What do you got?
So my good friend Tim Murray, many of you remember Tim. Tim was on the station for many years. A mainstay in the market for, 5, 6, 7 years. Tim's one of my good friends. Tim was a terrific broadcaster, then got this gig with NBC Sports Washington. Actually, it was with the NBC Sports Network, TV network, doing a gambling show with Michael Jenkins, which aired on NBC Sports Washington here locally. And then Tim used that as a way to get a really good gig with Brent Musburger's VSiN network out in Vegas. And Aaron Oster, who was a longtime producer at the station, produces my podcast. Aaron moved out to Vegas, and he produces Tim's show. Tim's got a successful show on the VSiN network right now. And Tim was always at the station the one guy more than anybody else that, Steve Solomon did. Solly and Murray and I probably had more gambling conversations than anybody else. And Murray sent me a note last night, and I think he sent it to you too, Brendan, that at the Westgate in Las Vegas, Washington is right now the favorite to win the NFC East. They have moved into the favorite position at Westgate. Pretty big sports book. They're plus 175 to win the NFC East. Dallas is plus 200. Now, I will tell you that the sites that I use to actually wager on, nobody has Washington as a favorite right now. I could go to Westgate and I could play Washington. I wouldn't want to play Washington as a favorite, obviously. I'd want to get the best possible number. But I couldn't find Washington as a favorite anywhere else, but it has narrowed. There are a couple of spots where I've seen Dallas at plus 120 and Washington at plus 140. I've seen Dallas at plus 110 and Washington at plus 160. And much more separation between the two of them and the Eagles and the Giants than before. Actually, that's not true. I've seen the Eagles move up a little bit. Believe it or not. I've seen the Eagles move up a little bit. But why would that be? Well, there's only one reason why that would be. It wouldn't be the results of preseason games. It would be that Dak Prescott's health is in question. And Dak Prescott's health is paramount to why Dallas has been the favorite since the end of the season. It's been absolute critical to why Dallas has had an over-under win total of a full game to a game and a half higher than Washington this year. And if Prescott's health, as reported by Adam Schefter over the weekend, that there's a chance that he may not be fully healthy at any point this upcoming season, even though Schefter didn't say that there's much risk of him not playing, but that he may not be 100%. Well, this is why there's a narrowing of the odds. There's also, by the way, one other factor in this. And the other factor would be, this is a guess, I bet there's a lot of Washington action here in the last month, 2 months. There's been too much discussion of Washington nationally. Every show you turn on ESPN, on the NFL Network, it's almost even money every day that somebody is going to talk about how they love the Washington football team this year. They think the Washington football team is the best team in the NFC East. They've got the best defense in the NFC. They are, and now I'm forgetting who said this, Brendan. Remind me who said Washington is the competition for Tampa in the NFC. Why am I blanking on who it was? Who said that? It was like a month and a half ago.
Oh, was that Louis Riddick?
No, Riddick is very high on Washington. Someone else said that they are the primary competitor to Tampa in the NFC. I can't remember who it was now. If anybody can remember, tweet me at Kevin Sheehan DC, please, because that's going to drive me nuts. But remember, we went through this a few weeks ago and listed all of the people that have been saying, incredibly complimentary things about Washington. So I think there's a lot of public action on Washington. Right now, Washington's total number is 8.5. But if you want to bet the over on Washington, on almost any site, you're going to have to lay a big number. I'm looking right now, Brendan, at over 8.5 at minus 160. And under 8.5 at plus 125. So they clearly want some under action here to, even out all of the over action they're getting on Washington. I think that's part of it, but I think the bigger issue in terms of the more immediate and recent narrowing of the NFC East odds is, number one, and there's not a close number two, is the prospect that Dak Prescott isn't going to be completely healthy this year. To me, if Dak Prescott isn't completely healthy and he's not Dak Prescott, they go from being the division favorite to the pick to finish last in the division. Is that fair? It's 100% fair.
Yeah.
They don't have a backup quarterback.
Yeah, for sure.
Their backup quarterback right now is a battle between the dude from JMU, Danucci or whatever his name is. People always say, Sheen, are you ever going to get his name right? I don't know if I'm ever going to get it right.
Also, no reason to get it right.
Here it is, Danucci. Danucci's his name. We saw him. He wasn't very good. And then Garrett Gilbert. Apparently, Cooper Rush has moved to the back of the line in terms of making this team. That the battle right now is between Gilbert and Danucci. The funny thing about Garrett Gilbert, he may have had the Cowboys on the verge of their biggest win last year against the Steelers, when the Steelers were still undefeated before Washington had beaten them. He actually played really well in that game. And when I say really well for, compared to what the other quarterbacks were doing for the Cowboys, Dalton, etc. Anyway, they don't have Dalton. I would bet you that if Dalton were still the backup here in Dallas, that Dallas would still be a slight favorite. But they do not have a backup quarterback. Garrett Gilbert or Ben DiNucci. JMU. Go Dukes. So there you go. I mean, if you're into this kind of stuff, definitely the odds on the NFC East champion The preseason prop bet, these odds are narrowing. Now, what would change it immediately, and what you would see immediately, is if on Thursday, September 9th, is that the date that the season opens up? If the Cowboys went out and Prescott in that offense put up 27+ against the Tampa Bay defense and Prescott looked great, immediately Dallas would go back to being a big favorite. But there's a lot of question as to how healthy Dak really is. Anyway, there's definitely some right now, and you know what? We'll get Eric Zimney on the show before the season starts for sure. Eric Zimney runs the Hollywood Sportsbook and Casino. He's the lead of that, the director of that for all of the Hollywood Sportsbook and casinos, including the one at Charlestown. Eric's a sharp dude. I talk to him. We text back and forth about a lot of this stuff. And we'll have him on the show. I would guarantee you he would say that there's been a lot of public action on Washington. You know where it hasn't changed, though, yet? It hasn't changed quite yet for the opener. I've seen a couple of pick'ems out there for the opener, but I've still seen mostly Chargers -1. I'm still predicting, Brendan, that Washington goes off as a favorite in that game by the time we get to that. I just have this sense that there will be, a bunch of sharp action on Washington and public action. I think the Chargers, not playing anybody, there isn't a real good sense of what they are. They should be pretty good defensively, and they should be pretty good offensively. They got players, obviously. And Staley was the D coordinator for the number 1 defense in the NFL last year.
Well, given how much their season win expectations have kind of changed over the last couple weeks.
Who, the Chargers?
Well, Washington's. People are now betting the over pretty heavily on their win total. You would think eventually.
I just said that.
I know. That you would think that would translate to the line moving. So I'm surprised.
Well, it's translating to the price.
Well, yeah. I would think eventually.
Over 8.5 -160 is pretty damn pricey.
Yeah. I would think that would translate more to week 1 with confidence in Washington.
Yeah, true. Although maybe they just look at the Chargers as really good. I'm looking at through the whole week 1 line thing. Tampa's now up to 7.5. That's another reflection of Prescott. They were a 6.5-point favorite forever. They're up to 7.5 in a lot of spots. Okay, that is major sharp money saying they expect Tampa to blow Dallas out in the opener. The biggest week 1 line is that one, is the first game of the year right now. Tampa being a 7.5-point favorite. I think there was 2 other 7s. San Francisco 7 at Detroit. The Rams are 7 over the Bears. And the Bills are 7-point favorites over the Steelers. All of our friend of mine asked me, when are you going to do all your preseason predictions? We will do that starting the week of Labor Day. When we get back here on the Tuesday after Labor Day, we will spend Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, not only building up to week 1, Washington Chargers and all the other games, but we will do all of our division picks, playoff picks, Super Bowl picks that week. I've got a couple of sleepers that I like, and I've been off on sleepers in recent years. There was a stretch where I seemed to nail them year after year, a couple of them. I haven't hit on any of these in a while. I've had the Giants a couple times. I've had Denver a couple times. I've had Detroit, as many people know, too many times. I do like Denver, though. I've told you that since whenever we started to do the show. They've just got so much talent, and it just comes down to the quarterback, and I think Drew Lock can be a good quarterback. He may not even win the job, though, because apparently Bridgewater's look just as good. So we'll see about them. And they're also in a brutal division, a division that they can't win, but they could certainly, win enough games to potentially make the playoffs in the AFC. I think right now, I promise you, I'm going to have Denver as a sleeper playoff team in the AFC for the 3rd time in the last 5 years. All right, when we come back, Ron Rivera spoke yesterday, and he described some of his players in a way that I haven't heard him describe those players. You'll hear it next. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show on the Team 980, the team980.com, and we are also on the
CuriosityStream has thousands of documentary films and shows available on demand on any device. We're the Netflix for nerds, the Hulu for history buffs, the Disney Plus for the scientist in us. There sure are a lot of streaming services, aren't there? CuriosityStream is the one you definitely need if you're the type to nature dock and chill, if you're an armchair astronaut, if you prefer physics to psychics, or perhaps you know a precocious paleontologist. Go to curiositystream.com to learn more and sign up today.
Odyssey now has hundreds of new exclusive music stations for you to discover your new summer soundtrack.
Get moving with worthy workouts for a cardio sesh fueled by today's top artists.
Hanging with your crew? Throw it back with Picnic Party for old school jams for your cookout.
Or sail away with Odyssey's new yacht rock station, Jugger Yacht.
There are hundreds of new exclusive stations to check out today.
For summer barbecues,
road trips,
or relaxing poolside.
For every mood, every interest, every passion. By Odyssey.
In America, the future belongs to everyone. So we built the SUVs of the future for everyone. Like Ford Escape, Edge, or Explorer. All named 2021 IIHS top safety picks with specific headlights. One of the many reasons why Ford has the freshest lineup of SUVs in America. Because the SUVs of the future aren't built for a few. They're built for America. Ford SUVs. Drive one today. When equipped with available LED headlamps based on AutoSource Incorporated data obtained on 10/5/20.
The Odyssey app.
Here's what's trending on the Team 980.
Washington cut Steven Sims Jr. Loose yesterday. Not a surprise if you've been watching Sims Jr. Had all those fumbles at the end of last year, and then late last week, or late in the preseason game last week against Cincinnati, he short-armed a long pass from Kyle Allen. Rivera said yesterday that they gave him time to catch on with another team. Washington's got to be down to 80 by 4 p.m. today, and then a week from today at 4 p.m., they go from 80 to 53. As mentioned earlier in the show, Monday night preseason football saw Jameis Winston go 9 of 10 with 2 touchdowns and 3 drives. The Saints beat the Jags 23-21. Last night, the Yankees beat the Braves 5-1. In a game that marked the first matchup between two teams with the winning streaks that they had since 1901. The Braves had won, the Yankees had won 10 in a row, and the Braves had won 9 in a row. The Yankees beat the Braves 5-1. No Nats action last night, no Orioles action last night. The Nats are on the road against the Marlins tonight, and the Orioles, with an 18-game losing skid, will try to break that late tonight, or tonight in Baltimore against Ohtani and the Angels. All right, so Ron Rivera spoke yesterday after a week in which he says this is going to be like a normal build-up week for the regular season, sort of their dress rehearsal for the regular season. Now, once again, he did not necessarily say that this would be a week in which he would play all the starters, but John Keim asked him once again about the plan for the week, and this is what he said. All right, we'll get that up in a second. We're looking for number 1, Brendan. I didn't give you a heads up on that. We'll just go in the order that I gave him to you.
For this week, if you go through the dress rehearsal during the week, what are the things that you really want to see and how it's handled?
Well, just the biggest thing more than anything else is really about us going through the process of what it's going to be like during the regular season. Everything from the way we're going to meet, to the way we walk through, to the way we practice, then the post-practice lifts and meetings. I mean, it's just to get a sense and feel for that. Be very direct with the game planning, getting an understanding feel for how we're going to game plan. And then also for the guys to develop and understand how important it is for them to take advantage of their own time.
I remember it being pretty high. I thought it was like
where there's a group of guys that aren't involved in special teams that have some downtime. What I've told them is I want them to take care of 3 things: either getting extra treatment, getting their strength conditioning done,
or spending some time in watching film. I mean, it's an opportunity to take about 40 minutes to get a little ahead of some things, an opportunity to watch your opponent, and kind of study what we're going to do. It's about time management now, and that's what we're looking for.
Time management. That's what he's looking for. He got into some detail that almost became Callahan-esque there for a while in terms of the week. Remember when old Coach Cal, old man Cal took us through the entire itinerary for the week? I think it was like week 2 of Cal replacing Gruden, and literally it was like a 5-minute answer where he went through the entire itinerary for the week. It was hysterical, including what was going to be served for meals. Anyway, great detail there from the head coach, Ron Rivera, but he still didn't answer at that point, are these starters going to play? Because what he said yesterday, and I mentioned this, well, he's talking about a preparation for a normal regular season week, but what about how he's going to treat the game with respect to the starters? Here was his answer there.
By any sense of how much you want to see from the starters and the first team?
No, when we get together, the coaches, in the next couple of days, we'll talk about how much we want to see everybody play, and we'll go from there.
There you go. So he's not committing on treating the third preseason game, the third and final preseason game, like the third preseason out of 4 used to be treated by a lot of teams, this was the game in which we're not only going to prepare a little bit like it's a regular season game, but the starters are going to go a half and maybe even a series into the third quarter, not committing on that. So I don't know. It's starting to sound to me like the preparation and the work leading up to the game is what he wants to resemble a regular season week, but that maybe when we get to the game, the starters don't play that much. My personal hope is that they don't treat it like the 4th preseason game used to be treated, where the starters don't play at all. I still think that, Ryan Fitzpatrick and the first team offense, I'd like to see just more reps. And I don't need to see Antonio Gibson run the football anymore. To be honest with you, I don't need to see Jarrett Patterson run the football anymore. I don't need to see anybody run the football. I think that this preseason game should be treated the way, there were a couple of teams last week. I think it was somebody had their starting quarterback throw like 19 passes in the first quarter of the game last week. And I'd have to go back and check to see who that was. I'm forgetting who it was now. Brady didn't play. And who played last week starting quarterbacks? Somebody threw like 19 balls. Not Nathan Peterman, who's thrown like an average of 35 passes in the first 2 preseason games. Somebody threw an S-load of passes as a starter last week. And I can't remember who it is. That's what I'd like to see personally. I know a lot of starting quarterbacks aren't playing. I understand that. No Justin Herbert. At this point, was it Roethlisberger? Maybe Roethlisberger threw a bunch of passes.
I think Roethlisberger threw like 10. Are you thinking of Mitch Trubisky?
No, I'm thinking of a starter. I don't remember who it was. And I could be wrong, and it may have been the week before. Did Roethlisberger throw those 10 passes in one drive?
That could be what I'm thinking. 2 drives.
Okay. I want to see Ryan Fitzpatrick come out and let's just throw the ball. Let's just start pitching and catching it, down the 2 or 3 drives, 4 drives. I don't care. But I don't need to see Gibson run it. And if they want to attack this game like a normal game plan where they're going to try to stay balanced, then start Patterson or start Jonathan Williams in this game if he doesn't get released today. I don't need to see the backs anymore. I really don't. And I don't want Gibson, who did have some injuries last year. I want him ready for week 1. I think Gibson's got a chance to be a great player, and I thought he was pretty good the other night. I know that statistically it's not necessarily being reflected, but I think Gibson looks good so far. But that was his answer. It doesn't, there's still no commitment to the playing time. There's just a commitment to the preparation leading up to this. This was Ron Rivera talking about Landon Collins, who had the biggest hit of the game the other night on that little boot throw. Came up, hit big. You know, Landon Collins, before I let you listen to what Ron Rivera said about Landon Collins, my personal belief, and I said this several times last year, I didn't think before he got hurt he was as bad as a lot of you thought he was. And I also think that to a certain degree, with no off season and a new coaching staff and a new defense, that there should have been some slack cut to everybody's team that had a new coaching staff last year, you know, in a new scheme. And I wondered whether or not Landon Collins in the offseason after the injury would, A, be healthy enough to play at the beginning of this year, and B, was a guy that they actually wanted. Because, Ron Rivera wants guys bought into the Ron Rivera way. And don't ask me why I had this sense that maybe Collins wasn't exactly full-fledged in the Ron Rivera cult. But I had, a conversation with somebody in the offseason who said, they're looking for him to be a little bit more committed if he's healthy and he gets back. So with that in mind, I want you to listen to Ron Rivera's full answer on Landon Collins.
Well, he's done a great job from the beginning. I mean, he really has, and that's just one of many plays that he's made so far. He's done a nice job in terms of his return. Love the way he's handling things, the way he's working within the scheme, working with his teammates, developing that rapport that you need, and getting back on the field. He's done a very, very good job at that.
I think that last part is really important. I think that there was probably at some point, at least in the minds of the coaching staff, is Landon going to be one of us? Is he going to totally buy in to our way? We think he's a talent, but we're only keeping guys that are totally bought in to what we're doing. And I think that last part there was him saying Landon Collins is bought in. He's working within the scheme. He's working with his teammates. He's developing a good rapport with people. I think that was as important in that answer from Ron Rivera as anything else. I'm kind of excited about a healthy Landon Collins, totally bought in with a good coaching staff on defense. Because when he got here, remember, he was so focused on all the games he was going to play against his former team. He was scorned by his former lover, and he was angry about it. He couldn't stand Gettleman. He couldn't stand the Giants. He could not get the Giants off his brain or his lips. It just was constant with him talking about the Giants and what he was going to do to them and how great it was, the team that he was on, and finally was with a really great organization, the one that went 3-13 in 2019, and replaced everybody. Now he's with a legit defensive staff that can, hopefully get the best out of him with him committing the best of himself. I think that this is going to be fun to watch this year because he does have talent. He's got a lot of talent. And regardless of what we thought, with various people saying, no, he's more than a box safety when they signed him to that deal, which was too much money for a safety. I didn't have a problem with the deal, though. I know what my position was. They needed the position. They had the money, and I liked Landon Collins, the player in New York. But the truth is he really is primarily an in-the-box safety. No matter how many people want to tell you about how versatile he is, what he is he's a violent, physical, in-the-box safety. And you add that to hopefully improvement at linebacker with what's in front of that group on that second level, he could have a big year. All right, when we come back, I'm going to play the soundbite that I teased before, which is Ron Rivera telling people about the players that he liked so far, that he thinks has played that have played well in the first two preseason games. His answer made me laugh the way he answered it. You'll hear it next. Kevin Sheehan Show, Team 980, the team980.com. We are also on the Odyssey app, and I want to make sure that everybody understands that BetQL is wagertainment for every fan. Morning, afternoon, and night. Get sports betting tips from the best in the game, and it's now streaming on Odyssey.
The COVID-19 pandemic showed us how a microscopic virus could upend our lives. There is so much out there that we need to understand. But for every threat, there are heroes working at the edges of science and policy to protect us. I'm Dr. Abdul El-Sayed, former Detroit Health Director and host of Crooked Media's America Dissected. Every episode, I talk to the doctors, scientists, culture makers, and policy leaders who are working out new ways to protect us against our biggest threats. New episodes of America Dissected every Tuesday. Listen on Odyssey, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
On Pod Save the World, we want to be your cheat sheet for global events. My name is Tommy Vitor, and each week, my co-host Ben Rhodes and I break down the biggest stories from around the world. Ben and I both worked on President Obama's national security staff, and we'll introduce you to the activists, politicians, and journalists who can help us understand what's going on around the world, what it means for the United States, and what it's like being inside the White House Situation Room during a crisis.
Listen on Odyssey, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your pods.
CuriosityStream has thousands of documentary films and shows available on demand on any device. We're the Netflix for nerds, the Hulu for history buffs, the Disney Plus for the scientist in us. There sure are a lot of streaming services, aren't there? CuriosityStream is the one you definitely need if you're the type to nature dock and chill, if you're an armchair astronaut, if you prefer physics to psychics, or perhaps you know a precocious paleontologist. Go to curiositystream.com to learn more and sign up today.